And no one wouldn't.
Nobody's called me back.
Because I don't remember seeing it. right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Apex Town Council meeting, the regular scheduled council meeting for Tuesday, December 9th, 2025, and I will call the meeting to order. We'll move now to the invocation, and tonight we will take a moment of peace together. So if you would join me in a moment of peace. Thank you. Thank you. If you would please join me, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, thank you for joining us on this cold night. I do want to share that if you've kind of been missing in action, the council looks a little bit different. And so we have a returning member, of course, Ed Gray. And then, of course, we have Shane Reese, new member, and then Sue Moo. So I'm going to give them a quick opportunity if they want to say something. Councilman Shane Reese.
I'm Shane Reese. I'm ready to get to work.
All right, there you go. All right, Councilwoman Sue Moo.
Similar. I'm Sue Moo. I'm ready to serve.
All right, good enough. All right.
Well, they're going to hear plenty from me, so no need to keep talking.
All right, thank you so much. We'll move now into the consent agenda. And before we approve the consent agenda, I do want to make a note for, we have add consent item 22, which is amendment to the 2026 Apex Town Council regular meeting schedule. And then also, we do have members of the community here with a concern for consent 2. And I do, Mr. Manager, I would like to call on staff to provide some clarity on that before we approve the consent.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'll invite Russell to come on up if you would.
Thank you,
evening.
Mr. Dalton. Thank you for being here.
Yep, consent 2 is a funding agreement for the Tunstall Avenue and Center Street sidewalk with NCDOT. So this is for right-of-way reimbursement. It doesn't have any bearing on the design. Some questions have been brought to our attention about the design. We are still in the design phase, still accepting public input. Adam Stevenson is our project manager on that, so anyone who has any concerns can certainly reach out to us about the design for us to incorporate those, and we're happy to have a meeting if there's a group that wants to come in and discuss the project.
Okay. 700 Center Street Christian Church, so I know we have members from there, so thank you so much for that clarity.
You're welcome.
So there is still time to provide some input to that. Okay, thank you
Appreciate it.
so much. All right, so with that information, is there a motion to approve?
Make motion to approve.
All right, Mahaffey.
Second.
Second, great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, move now to setting the regular meeting agenda. We do have some changes here. First one, switching public hearing number 4 with public hearing number 5. The rezoning case will be heard with the transportation plan amendments. The environmental enhancement plan is proposed to be separate from the rezoning. Next, deferral of public hearing number 7, UDO amendments to January 13th, 2026. And then final, removing new business number 1, construction contract related to Salem Streetscape, and defer consideration at the December 16th work session. All right, with those notate changes, their motion.
Motion approved.
Motion Mahaffey.
Second.
Second, Gray. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We now have updates. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have quite a few things, but I'll move through it pretty quick. I will start with our update on Cigna and UNC situation. As you know, UNC went out of network with Cigna as of December 1st. This does impact a number of our employees and their families. So we continue to work with both UNC and Cigna. The latest update, which we received about 45 minutes ago, is that both parties are in meetings going through this evening with a hope that they will achieve closure on this tonight. So fingers crossed. There was a submittal back from UNC to Cigna yesterday. They were considering that, and hopefully the details get ironed out by this evening. Because we do, as we pointed out a few times, we have employees that are starting to have to cancel appointments. They've got specialists. It's been a little messy for us and our employees, so we're hopeful that that happens tonight and the disruption is no longer. Moving from that, we are excited. We've also recently announced this. We've hired an electric director. It's Miss Kathy Moyer, who comes to us from Electricities. She's currently their COO, so we are extremely happy to have Kathy come to work for the town of Apex. She is a resident of Apex, and she just went through our Peak Academy over the last year. So she definitely wants to be here, and we'd love to have her. So that's on the horizon. She will start in January, so start the new year there. Moving on, we've got several events and festivals. I'll hit just a couple of those. The Holiday Tour of Lights began December 6th and goes through the end of the year. That's from 6 to 9 every night. It's for houses that have registered to participate and show their holiday lights. You can tour around. The maps are available on our website. We've got the Snowman Stroll, which lasts from December 5th through the 14th. That is for downtown Apex businesses. There's a passport, and working with economic development, you can go around to the different businesses and get that passport stamped. There's a lot of discounts and different offerings from the businesses there. We've got a Christmas play and musical from December 12th through the 14th at the Halley Cultural Arts Center. It's Asterix the Little Star, and so that will be at Halley. We've got the Hanukkah Festival on December 14th. That's from 3 to 6 in the Apex Senior Center. That will conclude with the lighting of the menorah here on town campus. I'll mention the next one, even though it's sold out. I'll say that first. On December 19th, we are again doing a movie in the park. This will be at Pleasant Park. That event is sold out, so hopefully those got tickets, but we are hopeful to do more events like that, but that's on December 19th. The Apex Friendship High School Band's Holiday Showcase is December 20th, and that's from 3 to 4 p.m. at the Halley Cultural Arts Center. A couple of administrative items. Our next meeting, we have our work session, as was alluded to earlier. That's Tuesday, December 16th at 3:30. We will be covering our Peak Plan 2055 and getting an update from our consultant on that. We've got the Community Readiness Plan. We will do a brief session on our capital investment plan. And we also now will have the Salem streetscaping item taken up at that meeting. Wrapping up our tree lighting and parade. The Rotary Parade was great. We had everybody on floats, and I think it was a wonderful event, despite it was a little chilly. I don't think it was as cold as last year, though, at that event. The tree lighting was another great event. We did have some impacts from weather. We had some band closures or the bands that canceled for that event, but had a lot of people out at that event, and I think overall it went great. Town closures coming up. We've got December 24th through the 26th for the Christmas holiday. Town Hall will be closed. Also January 1st for New Year's. Heading into, a couple of you were at our ceremony we had last week. We did our employee award ceremony, our annual. Thank you, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Mahaffey, for attending and helping us with the ceremony. We honored close to 70 employees for service awards, ranging from 5 years up to 25 years, which is more of a rare thing these days at the 25-year mark, but we actually recognized 8 employees for 25 years of service. So pretty awesome with that. I am going to read some names because I think this is important for us to recognize. We expanded our awards program from 3 awards to, I think we ended up with 7. So I'm going to read the Closer Award, and they're all sports themed, going off Game Plan Apex. The Closer Award went to Emily Woody in our electric department. The Community All-Star Award went to Ellison Lambert in our Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources department. The Team Captain Award went to Melissa Stewart from our Public Works department. The All-Star Award team went to those individuals that worked on bringing back the Employee Olympics, and that was Julia Blunshine, Kendall Hart, and Jenny Yessen. So that was great. The Special Administration Peak Award went to our IT team, the entire IT team, for everything that they've done over the last year for this organization. We gave a Rookie of the Year award to Marlene Alvarez from our Ask Apex team and our CD&C department. Our Coach of the Year went to Samantha Evans in our Inspections and Permitting department. And the equivalent of the Employee of the Year, it's now the Audra Killingsworth MVP Award, went to Jessica Sloan in our Water Resources Department. So a lot of good recognition there. And then on a side note, we had Spirit Week for our team last week, and we had a Deck Your Desk competition, and that went to our Finance and Billing Department for their efforts in decking their desk area. All right, last thing I got is related to utilities, and I'll hit meter exchanges first, and then I'll give some utility updated numbers. On meter exchanges, I mentioned this last time, but I'll just reiterate it again. Our water meter exchange program is completed. We're still just doing some final checks, but all of those water meters should be exchanged. We have now begun the electric meter change out. We have completed 4,000 electric meters. So we have roughly 28,000 more to go. We anticipate to be completed with that change out by next fall. So a little bit more to go on that. And our success read rate on the electric meters is currently at 99%. So pretty high threshold there. And heading into utilities, give you some numbers that compare to what I've reported on in the past. So our Ask Apex team continues to rock and really kill it on this. They're answering 90% of calls are addressed by the Ask Apex team. So that means 10% of the calls that are coming in have to then be pushed to the different departments for their expertise. With that, their average wait time for time to answer calls is 1 minute and 31 seconds. So pretty good wait time on that. We continue to see a decreasing volume as it relates to utility billing, which is a positive indicator. We have, in looking at our cycle length, we continue to see that normalized. We've had, for the data that I'm reporting on, we've got 10 periods for cycle 1, and the average continues to be around 30. It's 30.2 days of length of service for cycle 1, and we have 9 readings to report on for cycle 2, and it's 30.3. So a pretty normalized pattern there in the length of days for the billing cycles. Getting into the variance report, I'll tell you about cycle 1. If you recall, October, and remember for variances, this is kind of anomalies that pop up each time when we run the cycle. There's a certain number that's always going to be there. It flags it if it's outside of the norm. So maybe different seasons affect that. But we started October, we had 5,469 pop up on our variance report. November dropped to 945, and we continue to see that decline. Our December number for cycle 1 is 865 on the variances. That could be where we sit. That might be a normalized number. It's about 3.5%. So we're going to monitor that, but hopefully gone are the days of the multi-thousands, and we're in the sub-1,000 for variances on cycle 1. Cycle 2, I'm still awaiting the December data. We should have that next week as that cycle drops, or end of this week. But the data for cycle 2, I'll remind you, September we had 5,919 variances. October cut roughly in half down to 2,567. And then for November, we were 1,125. So we fully anticipate to be lower in December, hopefully sub 1,000 on that as well, which again might be where we sit each time to go through those variances and monitor those. The last number I have for you relates to the log that we've been monitoring of calls and backlogs of issues to resolve. We hit the 75% mark today. So we have roughly 25% left, which equates to around 250 individuals that we're working through those cases. I would say a large portion of those are bill review, followed by solar. And so we are continuing to work through, I would say as a group, solar is probably still the most impacted currently. And we're working through that. There are just a lot of nuances. One thing that will assist in that is the electric meter changeout. Once that's completed, all of our solar systems will be reporting through one system, which will help us streamline, but we're currently having to work through nuances of a lot of different systems that are interacting with a lot of different types of solar systems, which has made it a little more complicated. So our numbers are still trending positive. We anticipate the log. We were hopeful to get it done by the end of this year, but it'll probably creep into January a little bit, but we're not much further into January is the hope. And with that, that is all that I have.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions for manager? Hearing none. All right, we'll move on We'll move now to public forum. This opportunity for community members to address the town council. And we do remind you, 3 minutes. Unless you have 4 more people, you get 9 minutes. But if you're here as a group, please designate a speaker to speak on your behalf. And that'll help us move along. There's quite a few speakers signed up tonight. So we'll go ahead and move forward with that. We do have Patrick Campbell. If you would please come up. Give us your name and address before you present.
Good evening, members of the Apex Town Council. My name is Patrick Campbell, and I reside at 3717 Jordan Shires Drive.
9 minutes, please, Mr. Clerk.
For the last 3 months, my fellow town residents have been speaking with you about our increasing concerns over the currently proposed 300 megawatt data center. A data center that is being developed by a developer whose largest completed data center to date is 30 megawatts. A developer who has made it completely clear that the only involvement they have is to have the project rezoned, close on the property, and immediately put the property up for auction to the highest bidder, at which time they currently have 4 people bidding. It is clear to everyone that the developer's only concern is making as quick a buck as possible while minimizing any physical work or responsibility, that they have no idea how many buildings will be installed, where they will be located, what the building dimensions will be, how the buildings will be cooled, what kind of waste the buildings will give off, or even how many people will be employed. All of the developers' talks contain the same word, conceptual, whenever describing anything detailed. For a reported $1.3 billion project, the lack of detail is deafening and screams of, we don't want to tell you what actually will be installed because you won't vote for us. What we can infer from all the discussions the developer has had in open forum, be it at the public meetings they have hosted or the Environmental Advisory Board, is that they continue to hold up their previously built 30 megawatt data center as the example people should expect and not worry so much about what they are doing here, expecting that our town residents not think for themselves. One of the hard parts of writing this speech is trying to describe the difference between a 30 megawatt data center and a 300 megawatt data center. Thanks to the Apex Fire Department last night responding to an issue in my neighborhood, I think I figured out a good analogy. A 30 megawatt data center is typical to a sedan, a Ford Fusion as an example, as a 300 megawatt data center is to a fire engine. A Ford Fusion will get you where you need to go, doesn't typically disrupt your neighbors in their houses when driving past at night, and has decent gas mileage. A fire engine, which is 10 times the weight of a Ford Fusion, is 2 to 3 times the length of a Ford Fusion, and you can easily hear it in your house as it drives past on a street, even with no lights or sirens, has horrible fuel economy, with the potential devastation in the event of an accident being so much greater than that of a Ford Fusion. By the way, congratulations must be presented to the developer for trying to sneak a 300 megawatt power plant into the town of Apex under the guise of light industrial zoning, as that will be the on-site power generation capability of the proposed data center, with approximately 120 standby generators and the permanent on-site storage of over 500,000 gallons of diesel. For comparison, that is more than 5 Costco gas stations worth of fuel on one site. Speaking of the developer's plan to provide power to the proposed data center, the developer has decided to bypass the town of Apex Electric Utility to work out an MOU directly with Duke Energy. Having been part of these kinds of deals in the past, I have the unique experience and knowledge to explain why they are bypassing the town of Apex. It is not due to the town of Apex Electric Utility's inexperience with substations, seeing as they run 6 substations and are starting their 7th one within the next 18 months. It is because transmission line operators provide pricing incentives for very large loads, with the incentives variable depending on the size of the load. You're probably asking yourself, what does that mean by loads and incentives? A load is how much power, kW, your house, building, or group of buildings use per hour. Thus, you get kilowatts per hour. The typical incentive a utility can use is agreeing to lock in a set kilowatt hour rate for an extended period of time. Typical extended periods of time is 1 to 10 years, which is normal for loads anywhere from 50 megawatts to 200 megawatts. For a load of 300 megawatts, the extended period of time will likely be between 10 to 20 years, where they will be locked in at roughly 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Just to make sure we understand each other, the residential rate for Apex is 11 cents a kilowatt hour. Why am I bringing up Duke Energy providing electric power over Apex Electric Utility? What is the issue? The issue is that the billing rates for both electric and natural gas typically rise between 15 to 25% per year, year over year, in areas that are near data centers. If you just Google electric power rate increase by data centers for the news articles and hard data. But while our power bills go up year over year, data centers that are signed up with the transmission line organizations will be heavily regulated due to their ironclad MOUs. To simplify what that means, if you are paying $250 a month for your electric bill today, you can expect to be paying roughly $700 a month within 7 years. That's taking into account that it'll take 2 years to build a data center, and there are currently 40 data centers that are in the works around Wake County. Why 7 years' time? It takes approximately 2 years to build and commission data centers, once the property is zoned and permits are issued. Most people in the town of Apex will not immediately be affected by this data center. That will change 1 year after it goes live and power bills start rising at an alarming rate. These are just a few reasons that we, the residents of Apex, demand a data center specific zoning in the town UDO with strict building ordinances for any data centers that have an estimated 30 megawatt load or greater. Some of these stricter ordinances include the requirement for any properties that request to be annexed into the town of Apex for access to town utilities must use the utilities provided by the town of Apex, with the only exception being natural gas, as the town of Apex does not offer it. The data center developer is only interested in having the property annexed for 2 reasons: water and sewage. If the town of Apex Electric Utility is the utility provider for the data center, then the data center doesn't get their 20-year MOU pricing fixed at 4 cents a kilowatt hour. The data center gets hit with yearly rate increases, as Duke Energy Transmission will increase power rates on a year-over-year basis. By the way, thank you so much for hiring the person from Electric Cities, as she's well aware of all these situations. For everyone except those lucky few that work out private deals under NDAs so their neighbors, local government officials never find out the sweetheart deals that are in place, which is exactly what is occurring right now with Duke Energy Transmission. The data center doesn't get power while the rest of the towns is in brownout or blackout conditions due to there not being enough capacity on the grid to support the town load. With regards to the noise ordinance requirement of no greater than 55 dBA dBc at the property line during the daytime and 45 dBA dBc at the property line during the overnight period. This includes when all on-site generators are active. Any engineer that says they cannot meet the goal is saying, due to trying to keep costs down and willing to gamble, that the town will not push the issue. It's called engineering controls. Anyone that's taken OSHA or any engineering classes is well aware of this. This requirement needs to be kept, as the exterior noise will not be entering their buildings. It would affect their servers. If they can insulate the building to keep outside noise from intruding and disturbing their servers, then they can insulate the generators to keep the noise from escaping to the property line of almost 200 acres. Finally, as a Fortune 100 company will almost certainly be the ultimate owner of this site, we strongly request that daily penalties for noise ordinance violations specific to the data center zoning be set at a minimum $1 million per day, as any less would just be factored into the cost of just doing the business and ignored by companies that use the word trillion to describe their worth. To make this as clear as possible, no matter how often the developer swears they will be here for the full design, build, running of this facility, they have stated point blank on numerous occasions that they are selling this property as soon as the property is rezoned. Please trust them the same way you would trust a car salesman who says he's here if any problems occur, but all sales are final, and to contact the 1-800 number for warranty issues. Thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has happy holidays.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have Morgan Kimball.
Hi, my name is Morgan, and I am here to talk about data centers. I know some of you want to put in a data center near my home, and a lot of us disagree on that. But there's a tiny problem with putting in data centers. That's a 300 megawatt center. It takes up so much energy. As you might have heard, 2 people had found their forever home, but their home was near a data center, and their water and air got polluted, and they had to move. And I don't think that's what anyone wants to happen to Apex. So join us. Instead of putting in a data center, try and think of something else you can put in that won't mess around with anyone else's home or neighborhood.
Right, thanks for speaking, Morgan. Thank you. All right. Cheryl O'Connor. 3 minutes.
Fix all this. All right. Dr. Michelle Hoffner O'Connor, 2664 Jordan Point Boulevard. It has been a long fall for some folks in this room. Many have learned things they never imagined they would, and others are understandably very fearful of their future for their homes and families. Here's a few reasons as to why. The data center intends to utilize diesel generators as backup power source. The regular exercising of these generators expose citizens to harmful pollutants, including nitrogen and sulfur oxides and fine particulate matter, affecting everything from asthma attack frequency and severity to cancer development. I referenced my speech from October 14th for the record for further details concerning this. Also, the developer is expecting these generators will be exempt from sound ordinances. Whether via water or air, we will experience increased PFAS exposure, which will further contaminate our environment and affect our health. I reference my spoken and written remarks from November 13th for the record for further information. The developer has not discussed refrigerants at all, even though most data centers utilize these, and they do release PFAS gases. On the other hand, while they claim that the water will be polished before it enters the cooling towers, PFAS removal is not considered to be standard in that process, which means a more concentrated pollutant will be sent back to the water reclamation facility and emptied into the basin, or it will be released via the blowdown. To further elaborate on the issue of polishing, the developer does not acknowledge that potent biocides will be needed to be used to limit bacterial growth in the cooling towers. Incidentally, biocides are for mitigation, not prevention. We should absolutely expect biofilms to form given the ideal moisture content and temperature, and that the aerosolized bacteria, such as Legionella, will travel up to 12 kilometers and will kill 5 to 15% of those who develop Legionnaire's disease. The 60 A-weighted decibel request will be disruptive to our sleep, cause neurological and psychiatric problems, and even exacerbate conditions like hypertension. A lower A-weighted decibel mandated by the town will not fully address the problem, as DBC is the most accurate to address lower frequency sounds. On November 12th, their sound engineer could not answer my question concerning an acceptable DBC level for the human ear. As an expert, you would think he could answer a basic question related to hearing, but like the rest of their team, expertise is in short supply. This project is a zebra in a metaphorical field of horses that are actually light industrial businesses. The resource use alone is damning, but the flagrant disregard of the developer for things that will cause harm to the community should be the nail in the coffin. They are offering next to nothing in terms of best practices because they don't want to restrict the end user, and that should tell you that the end user won't care about this town either. Amazon is responsible for rapidly increasing environmental nitrate levels that have resulted in health problems for people in Oregon, and Meta has contaminated people's wells in Georgia. Just to quickly name a few examples, we cannot and should not allow these harms to threaten people's livelihoods here in Apex. So with that, I hope you all have a happy holidays and you consider this during your quiet time off. Thank you
for speaking. Lynn Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Gilbert, Council. My name is Glenn Rennie, 3537 Jordan Shires Drive. The title of my talk is Gaming the System. Let me start by saying I do not believe that New Hill is an acceptable site for the data center. However, we may not be successful in preventing a data center in Apex, so we must ensure that our codes and ordinances are sufficient in preventing undesirable impacts on our community. Remember, they have more lawyers than we do. In the small town of Boxtown in Memphis, Tennessee, a huge data center was built. Permitted for 15 generators, XAI installed 35. The installation of the additional 20 generators used a weakness in the UDO that allowed temporary generator use for 364 days. No permits were required, so the generators lacked the required pollution controls. Another common loophole is called the emergency waiver that allows the use of generators which exceed federal and local noise and environmental limits. Poor definitions of emergency has allowed 24/7 generation because Memphis Power Company needs time to increase generating capacity. By the way, during hot days here, when the electricity demand is high, Duke Energy asked the wastewater reclamation facility to switch over to their generators because there's not enough power available for the grid. Will the data centers have to use their generators when the grid is heavily loaded? In just 17 hours, these generators can emit enough particulate matter to reach the EPA limit over all of Apex to a height of 100 meters. Natelli Investments held a community meeting and assured us that they are designing the data center to be well within the codes and ordinances. For example, if the noise limits are 60 dB at the property line, they will design for 50 dB. But then, answering another question, they stated they won't be building the data center, the user will. Is there any legal requirement for the user to honor Natelli's promises? In both meetings, Natelli argued that doubling the number of generators doesn't double the amount of sound. It only increases it by 3 dB. The decibel is a logarithmic scale used by engineers where the increase of 3 dB means twice as much sound. They're using technical terms to try to deceive us. Natelli promised to pay the town of Apex the cost of hiring sound engineers. We need to hire the best engineers to ensure that the noise studies and designs are technically valid. These promises are easy to make if you aren't the one that has to honor them. We must codify these promises into ordinances. I reserve the rest of my time for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Don Cozzolino.
Dawn Cozzolino, 3632 Bosco Road. Good evening, Mayor, council members. North Carolina's former Attorney General, now Governor, Josh Stein said it best. North Carolinians shouldn't be charged junk fees for basic rights or services. Transparency is a core obligation of government, not a revenue source. I'm here regarding the proposed public records fee that's in the consent agenda tonight. North Carolina law is clear. Local governments cannot charge for digital records unless a request requires something truly extraordinary. Routine emails, PDFs, and spreadsheets do not meet the threshold, and charging for them violates Chapter 132. Under North Carolina General Statute 132-6.2b, a fee is allowed only when a request requires extensive clerical work, supervisory involvement, or IT resources, meaning beyond normal government duties, not simply large or inconvenient requests. UNC School of Government Guidance confirms free access is the rule. The government bears the burden to prove a request is unusually intensive, digital records have no copying cost, and any fee must reflect actual cost, not staff value, a budget offset, or a detriment. The town is treating this narrow exception as the rule. Their claimed 88-day median and 64% 10-day completion rate does not match my own experience, as I have come before the council before. This is a process and compliance problem, not a fee problem. and charging residents for internal delays solves nothing. To the newly elected officials that we have before us tonight, your oath is to uphold the U.S. and North Carolina constitutions, requiring protecting the public's right to records, and any fee that restricts access violates both the law and that oath that you took. Chapter 132 provides real consequences, court orders, attorney fee awards, and civil penalties. Transparency must come before politics or revenue, and Apex should be the model of compliance, not a test case. I urge you to reject this fee and this narrow legal exception, and that public records, again, belong to the public, not the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cozzolino. David Otochi.
Hello, my name is David Itoji. I live at 113 Lake Meadow Drive. I am going to defer my time to Pastor Green.
Okay. I also have Janice Itoji, same group, okay. So then we would have Dr. George Green and Paul Stam. Is he speaking on your behalf, Paul Stam? Mr. Stam?
He would speak first, and then I.
Sure, that's fine. You have 4 more people here for your group?
I have much more than 4 people here.
Okay, absolutely. You brought the whole Apex, I see. 9 minutes.
I would say at least 15 persons.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to address this council. I will not need 9 minutes. I normally preach close to an hour, but I'll be less than 3 minutes because my wife is here as well. But I want to, and I am Reverend Dr. George Green. 700 Center Street is our location. It is the Christian Home Christian Church, and we have occupied this grid square since 1864, 1865. As a matter of fact, we have been in existence 9 years longer or before the inception of Apex itself. And I will start by saying that I have reached out today by telephone call to every council person sitting in my presence. And I don't know what the wait time on that is, but I did ask that the CN2 be withheld from the consented agenda. This Safe Route sidewalk project, if implemented in the design that we have received, the rendering, will be detrimental and will present a huge safety issue. We will lose our parking and we'll be literally into the street. My second point is that I don't feel that we have been communicated with properly. Last night was my first even hearing of this, and I learned this from a neighbor across the street. I have not received any official notification from this council or Apex at all. You are the guys that deemed us a historical site. And we're just asking for some respect. I'm glad to hear it's still in design because we'd like to have some input about this. So this is a tremendous project. We've done some studies and things of that nature after finding out about it. I'll just let Mr. Stam talk about that. But thank you so much for your time, and I want to honor your time.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, I'm Paul Stam. I live at 714 Hunter Street, just 2 blocks that way. Been living here in Apex for 49 years. I know this area pretty well, the area in question. I heard about the dispute about a week ago, maybe 8 days ago, and heard about the meeting tonight, earlier today. The problems are many. First of all, I contacted the engineer who put me in touch with the planner. The planner did not indicate that there would be a meeting coming up, but did give me some reasons why this project is on the agenda. One, school walking safety. I'm in favor of that. Many years ago, when I was town attorney, I helped do the sidewalks on Hunter Street to get to Balcom, and I helped Mayor Pro Tem Atwater to get sidewalks elsewhere, for example, Apex Elementary. I'm all in favor of that. But guess what? Kids don't walk where the church is. Mr. Atoji lives right there. And he helped count last Monday the number of kids walking there to school in the morning and the afternoon. 0 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. This is not a school safety issue. Second, I was told by the planner that they were assuming, or maybe it was the engineer, but one of them, that they were assuming a 50-foot wide current right-of-way. And I have not had the opportunity to do the title search necessary to determine if that's true. But my current belief and working assumption is that that is not a 50-foot right-of-way, because it is not actually dedicated to the town. Rather, it's just been used for many decades, back in the 50s probably, when Sam Blackwell, you may have heard of Sam Blackwell, took his bulldozer there and made it. Well, when that's the way that a street is obtained and there's nothing recorded, the Department of Transportation only has access to the, title to the limits of highway maintenance, which is usually the back of the ditch. There is no ditch here. And in my opinion, sitting today, but subject to being corrected, is that the width on this side of the church is 11 feet, not 25 feet. So the cost to the town will be much, much greater than what the documents I saw on the record tonight with. It just be much greater. And there'll be a safety problem because the parking spaces that are right there will immediately back into the street as if you were downtown, and it's not a really good thing. The third thing I did is I've wandered around these streets several times. I'm very familiar with it. My kids went to Apex Middle School. A lot of my friends live on this area in between. This is not the way to go to get to school. It doesn't go directly to the school like another street would. Instead, you have to make another quarter of a mile jog to get to where school lets out. It's not a good location for this. When do the people get a chance to talk about the location? Of course, there'll be discussions about design. There'll be resolutions required to acquire property by eminent domain from people who've lived there, in the case of Otoji's, 30 years, and the church that's been there since 1865. There'll be eminent domain required. This should be rethought, and we would ask you to defer the agenda item for at least a month so we can get to the bottom of the reasons. One of the reasons was residents' requests. It wouldn't surprise me if there were a lot of residents' requests up near 55. But I'm sure there weren't a lot of residents' requests down toward Center Street because, well, the planner can tell us where the request came from. And with that, I'll conclude and appreciate you letting us be heard this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stanton. Okay, we have one more noted here, Mr. Clerk, for the first written.
We had a written statement, so I won't read that statement, but it will be included in the official record from individual named Star Lion.
Okay, all right. Thank you everyone for speaking tonight. That does conclude our public forum. And again, you are heard, and we look forward to speaking with you on certain items really soon. So this will be a good opportunity if you want to exit. You can do it now, or you can stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Are you leaving? Yes. Yes. I do want to take. Yeah.
Take a little bit of time to get out there. Slower walkers. Oh,
I think they might be moving rapidly. What do you think? I think we're getting there. Want to move it? Yeah, I think they got it. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. I think we have enough. So public hearing number 1, annexation 816-1000 Classic Road. Diane Ken.
All right, good evening. So we have this annexation of 2.59 acres. It is located within Pinnacle Park on the far eastern portion of our jurisdiction, as you can see on the map. This is the building that's there. They are requesting annexation in order to get town sewer. Staff does recommend approval of the annexation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for Ms. Ken? Hearing none, the public hearing is open for comment. No one signed to speak is closed. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, move now to public hearing number 2, 3, and 4. Ms. Shannon Cox.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the first of 3 related public hearings. So as is typical, we anticipate you'll hold each public hearing, but wait to vote until the 3rd, so you have all the information. The first public hearing is about proposed amendments to the Thoroughfare and Collector Street Plan Map and the Bicycle and Pedestrian System Plan Map. So just to orient you to the exhibit, this is US 1 across the top of the page, 540 and 55. Much of the area is within Viridia. There's a few minor proposed changes to the transportation plan. One is to adjust the alignment of Viridia Parkway as it approaches US 1. This is to improve the curvature. That would also mean an adjustment of future Jupiter Creek Drive to improve the sight distance at this intersection. There's also what we call a minor change to adjust the planned alignment of Jesse Drive from where you see these X's slightly south to improve the stream crossing locations as well as the curvature of that roadway. And that's all within Viridia, no new property. The more substantial changes are located at Viridia Parkway and the future Jesse Drive intersection. Per our adopted plan, the through movement would be coming from 540 along Jesse Drive to NC 55. With the proposed change, the through movement would be coming from 540, continuing along Viridia Parkway and going to US 1. So the reason for this proposed change is because updated traffic impact analysis with the proposed Children's Hospital shows that the left turns coming off of off of what would we call Jesse Drive to Viridia Parkway would overwhelm that intersection. There'd be an estimated 1,300 turns in the morning peak hour, 500 in the afternoon peak hour. By making Viridia Parkway the through movement, it's much more manageable with less than 300 turns during both morning and afternoon. With that removal of the realignment, we are also proposing a shift to the location of the future major collector street from where these X's are shown to the east to allow that to be an unrestricted intersection. Otherwise, it would just be too close to the Jesse-Viridia Parkway intersection. I do want to note that we anticipate looking more closely at that major collector street alignment with our comprehensive plan that's currently underway, peak plan, to see if we can eliminate that stream crossing altogether. However, that would involve property outside of Viridia, so we wanted to do that with the comprehensive plan process. I'm going to move to the bicycle and pedestrian system plan map. So looking at the same area here, the proposed change is to remove the side path, which is the purple and white line, from Viridia Parkway. And that would extend from the edge of our planning area, which is approximately at Carolina Springs Boulevard, all the way to Prince Dead End Road, which is just south of US 1. We do also show proposed bicycle lanes, that's the blue and white dash along Viridia Parkway. So the reason for this proposed change is that NCDOT has provided feedback that if a separated facility like a side path is provided, they are not supportive of on-street bicycle lanes. They would prefer to have the separated facility, and they don't agree with also providing the on-street bicycle lanes and the increased maintenance associated with that pavement width. So in working with the Viridia team, staff and NCDOT, we are proposing a design change that we think would accommodate both the demand for separated bicycle facilities as well as the pedestrian needs. And that's to provide a 5-foot sidewalk separated with a grass strip from a 6-foot bike path that would also be separated with a grass strip and curb from the roadway. So we're basically providing that bicycle lane behind the curb, also separated from pedestrians. And that could all be accomplished within the planned right-of-way for both the 3-lane and 4-lane section of Viridia Parkway. Staff do recommend these proposed amendments. They were also unanimously recommended for approval by the Planning Board at their meeting last night, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions for Ms. Cox?
Ms. Cox, one quick question, and we've had this conversation before, but just to make sure everyone's on the same page, DOT is moving us away from having bike lanes within or on the same roadway. Can you give a little bit of background about what that conversation has been like and why we're seeing that move to separated lanes now?
Yeah, so since we completed our comprehensive bicycle plan, there have, I'd say, been changes in best practice. And Federal Highways has put out recommendations for certain facility types based on travel speeds and volumes. And for a roadway like Viridia Parkway, the recommendation is that those bicycle facilities are vertically separated, which can be done a number of ways, but vertically separated from traffic.
And that's only applying to like our major collectors. That's not applying to like our smaller, smaller thoroughfares that we have out there, right?
That would be more thoroughfares, so the higher speed, higher volume roadways, and less so collector streets, definitely not residential streets. But in general, you'd have to look at anticipated traffic volume as well as speeds.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, like I think a key takeaway here is, I'm happy to see that staff and the team at Viridia is continuing to do updated traffic studies and talking to DOT and adjusting the plan as things change, like the new Children's Hospital coming. We're seeing these changes because of, like you said, updated traffic counts. So it's, I think that's a good takeaway that, people should feel confident we're still looking at this stuff and adjusting as needed.
Very well. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll open up the public hearing for this item. No one signed up to speak. Public hearing is closed. All right, move to the next item.
Okay. So the next item is proposed amendments to the transit plan map. These are requested amendments by staff, even though they are associated with Viridia. The main proposed change here is to remove the future commuter rail proposed from near downtown, so about near NC 55, along the existing rail corridor, which it would then have a spur from near Pleasant Plains Elementary School into Viridia, and this is the area proposed for the Children's Hospital. Associated with that, we're also proposing removal of the rail and bus transit center within the Viridia area. Just to be clear, we're not proposing any changes to the rail we've been planning on and working toward in the downtown area. The reasons for this proposed change, we received or requested, and Campo provided a high-level planning estimate for what it would cost to bring rail into this area, and their estimate was $63 million. We think that's actually a low estimate because it doesn't account for topography and that sort of thing. So for that number, we would really need regional and federal funding support. Campo also completed in 2025 a regional rail investment study. That study considered a variety of rail opportunities across the region. This project was deemed not viable for federal funds and therefore not prioritized for regional funding. Viridia includes a zoning commitment to reserve right-of-way for a future rail system to the year 2035. If there's not funding at that time, that reservation is null. There's currently no commitments for the land area between Old 1 and US 1. And I think there's really no likelihood of regional or federal funding by 2035. In addition, this was added to our transit plan when light rail was really under consideration for this area. Light rail typically has much more frequent service than the commuter type rail that's being considered now. So we would expect lower service. In addition, this area currently has no railroad, so introducing a new railroad could create some barriers in terms of roadway crossings, bicycle and pedestrian crossings, new noise and vibration associated with trains. Instead, we're recommending that we add a bus transit center to this area. This is close to the 55 corridor. It's close to where the Wake Technical Community College is planned and the retail center of East Village of Viridia. It's in a location that would serve future Go Apex Route 3, which is that thick blue and white line there, as well as existing Go Triangle Route 305, which is the purple line, and potential future local service along Jesse Drive. We also recommend that we consider additional premium transit options with the peak plan, which would more likely be bus rapid transit or frequent bus service. Staff do recommend these amendments, and they were also unanimously recommended for approval by the planning board at their meeting last night. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? Hearing none. All right, we'll open up the public hearing for comment. No one signed up to speak. Public hearing is closed. Next item.
Good evening. So this is rezoning 25 CZ18 for the Viridia SD plan amendments. All of the properties that are currently included within the Viridia SD plan are a part of this rezoning, as the intent is to modify certain standards within their current SD plan. The properties are just under 1,100 acres and are currently zoned sustainable development conditional zoning. And the proposed rezoning is consistent with the 2045 land use map, which designates the entire area as regional mixed use. The applicant held their required neighborhood meetings on September 29th and November 10th, and you have those neighborhood meeting reports. So just a sorry, there's a slide missing. Okay. Just a brief history about Viridia. It was adopted in May of 2011. In addition to the district being added to the UDO, the zoning for this area was adopted in 2011. In February of 2023, the Environmental Enhancement Plan was adopted, and I believe in August of 24, the pattern book was adopted. Those are requirements of the SD plan. But tonight, the proposed amendments are just for the SD plan. The modifications that are included are in two parts, and you have there's an exhibit in your staff report that shows these areas. I apologize, I don't have that map for you on the screen. The part one relates only to amendments that will apply to the NCC hospital campus. Part two deals with amendments that would apply anywhere within the Viridia SD plan. So to summarize the changes proposed that are applicable to the hospital campus, the first is a modification that the responsible party does not have to provide a written statement indicating approval of any site plan or subdivision plans submitted on the NCC hospital campus. The second is an exemption from the energy efficiency goal within the Viridia SD plan. That's a goal, not a standard. The third is exemptions or modifications to design standards, including limitations that apply to pedestrian-oriented A grids or vehicle-oriented B grids, treatment of street frontages, architectural standards, lot width, block perimeter maximums, location of parking, etc. And then finally, the addition of 4 bus stops with certain amenities located west of Viridia Parkway within a quarter mile of a healthcare building. And this is directly related to the proposed transit plan amendments that Shannon just presented to you. So with the removal of the rail and bus center, we wanted to ensure that, as was intended for Viridia, that it was transit supportive. And so this commitment to providing these bus stops provides that assurance. Are there any questions about the proposed amendments in part one?
Any questions? Hearing none, proceed.
Part two deals with modifications that are applicable anywhere within Viridia. The first, again, is an elimination of all references to rail and the land reservation for future rail dedication. The second is a modification to the standard related to the to Perry 1 and US 1 road improvements, and the proposal is to change the requirement from an interchange to an overpass. If you'll recall, within the last year or so, we amended the transportation plan to change that based on feedback from NCDOT that those two interchanges would be too close to the interchange at US 1 and 55. So that would make that consistent with our transportation plan. The next is an exemption of any hospital and hospital-related use from the maximum authorized development limits in section 422B. Note that the hospital and any hospital-related use is considered a civic use, therefore wouldn't count against their maximum office uses anyway, but this just makes it clear and codifies that interpretation. The next is an exemption from the development thresholds in section 424, which is a mix of uses. At the time that Veridia was adopted, the intent was to ensure a mix of uses would be constructed instead of having all of the residential come up front without any related retail or office uses. Today, we have plans for over 1,300 residential units, over 200,000 square feet of industrial space, and in addition, we have in review plans for more than 125,000 square feet of retail and office space. Considering this, the future Wake Tech campus, and the hospital campus, we believe that the intent of having a mix of uses within Veridia has been met. Therefore, there's no need to have this specific threshold standard. The next two are related to the addition of a requirement to construct a bus transit center, again tied to those transit plan amendments, and a modification to specific recreation requirements. And so on this exhibit, this to orient you where we are within Veridia, this exhibit is located in East Village, which is under construction now. Future Adesso Boulevard is in this general location. And here you can start to see a Forest Light Way, a future 4-lane median divided thoroughfare in here. And then future Jesse Drive is on the west side. The future Wake Tech campus is to the south. So going back here, we have future Wake Tech campus on the south side of Forest Light Way. In this location, there will be an underpass under the road to provide better pedestrian connectivity, safer pedestrian connectivity from the Wake Tech campus to the rest of Veridia. Jesse Drive, future Jesse Drive extension is to the west here. In the red area, you see the future office and retail buildings that are under review currently. The orange are 291 multifamily units that are approved, and they've held a groundbreaking for that. And the yellow shows future residential that plans have been approved for Lennar for future townhomes and condos. So shown between Adesso Boulevard and Forest Light Way is a commitment for a bus transit center location, posted in close proximity, like I mentioned, to Wake Tech and the heart of the activity that will occur in East Village. And then, let me get to my notes here. The other commitment is the change to the recreational requirements. When Veridia was adopted, the town worked with the developer to set specific recreational requirements based on the needs of the town at that time. Well, since 2011, a lot has changed in the town, and we have Pleasant Park, which met a lot of the requirements, things that we were looking for back in 2011, softball fields, tennis court, just to name a couple. And so since we have that significant facility now, the developer has agreed to construct a 25,000 square foot community programmable recreation facility targeted in this location on Exhibit A1. In addition, the developer has committed to providing a public access easement over the Stormwater Park and Linear Park on this side of Jesse Drive. And we'll work collaboratively with the town to program the space. So it will be open to the public, not just residents within Veridia. The town will have programming opportunities there, and the developer gets to maintain it all. So we get the benefit of having this resource. And likewise, the programmable recreation center will be a public facility, open to the public. And there are commitments and thresholds in the standards for timing of a developer agreement that you as council will have to approve, and a timing for when the site plan for the recreation center has to be submitted. So we're not going to wait until some point in the future. There's a definite time before this many residential units are in place. We'll have a site plan, and then within 3 years of that, the center would be constructed. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board unanimously provided support for park staff working with the developer to come up with these standards. The Environmental Advisory Board was exempt from, there was no requirement for this rezoning to meet with the Environmental Advisory Board. Planning staff is recommending approval of the amendments, and yesterday at the Planning Board meeting, there was a unanimous recommendation for approval as well. The amendments are consistent with the 2045 land use map, and the rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it recognizes changes needed due to conditions that have changed since 2011, will provide the flexibility and design standards needed to construct the proposed North Carolina Children's Hospital campus, and require the developer for the remainder of Viridia to provide indoor and outdoor recreation space and a bus transit center. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Questions?
More of a comment. It appears that when we created the initial request for the Parks and Recs, kind of the requirements for park and recreation facilities in our previous actions, it appears like that would have taken a number of years to fulfill a lot of those, and there was a lot of wiggle room, a lot of time that's going to take place. But it sounds like we're going to be able to get a building or a facility relatively quickly.
So the commitment in the current plan, it was the dedication of land area to account for those specific requirements, not the construction of those specific requirements. So I can't speak to exactly the timing. And the dedication of that land, there was a threshold before a certain number of permits were issued that land dedication would have to provide. But with one of the changes is that now we have 230 acres that's been dedicated for the hospital campus. That reduces the land area available for recreation commitments.
I'm sure it would have taken us time to get it on the CIP, then do all the pieces along with it. So it sounds like we're getting a facility faster to meet our needs.
Potentially. I can't commit that it is faster, but potentially, yes.
Well, anything's faster than our CIP.
All right. I was just going to say that this is a good development for the town, considering just a couple months ago got a chance to sit down with Parks and Rec and learn about the needs, and tell me if I'm staying incorrect, but I thought you said we needed 100,000 square feet of indoor recreational space by 2030 or something like that, and so this gets us almost a quarter of the way there.
And Viridia is within the target search area in the park's master plan for an indoor facility, so it meets that as well.
All right, good stuff. Thank you. All right, let's open up the public hearing for this item. Let's bring up Mr. Barron, please.
Have yours open.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group. Thrilled to be here on behalf of the owners, RXR Realty, as well as North Carolina Children's. Joining me this evening are Joe Graziosi, a man who needs no introduction, with RXR, and also Simon George with North Carolina Children's. You're going to hear from each of them momentarily. I'm going to provide some introductory remarks, hand it off to the two of them, and then I'm going to come in behind them and talk a little bit about the nature of the changes that are before you all tonight. Before I do, I can't, and I know Joe will do the same thing, I can't let the moment pass without thanking the staff for their incredible service to the town and their exemplary service on behalf of the town towards this project. They burned the midnight oil like they were getting paid my hourly rate to do so. Candidly, it was. Which is high. That was a softball, Joe. Thank you. It was truly extraordinary work on behalf of the town, and not just in terms of turning things around, but dotting T's and crossing I's, working with our development team to make sure that as Viridia continues to become the amazing development that everybody hoped that it would be, and then some, that the town's fingerprints are on it as well. And 4 years ago, if we would have talked about Viridia, we would have all cringed and thought about, the lost opportunity that Viridia was. It was this dusty plan that was approved back in 2011. There was no momentum behind it. There were previous owners, and then along came Joe and RXR. And I think, Mr. Mayor, I remember calling you shortly after I met RXR, and I said, I think we have found the people to be able to make Viridia happen. You take one look at the projects that RXR has worked on, and you know immediately, just based on just their paper resume, what an incredible outfit they are, what an incredible organization they are. But what we've learned over time isn't just that they know how to deliver great projects. It's the passion, the care, and the commitment that they put into what they do. When RXR takes on a project, and I've seen this firsthand, and you all have seen it as well at Viridia, they have taken it on. It's a personal mission of theirs to make Viridia special, to partner with the town, to partner with the community, to build a community within Viridia and beyond. And that was before we knew that the North Carolina Children's Hospital was going to select Apex. I mean, could there be a better piece of dirt in the triangle for this type of use? Could there be a better community, a better town in the triangle than one that is known for families? I mean, that Apex has built an incredible reputation in this market for being a place for families. Having the North Carolina Children's Hospital come to Viridia, I mean, it's just, wow. I mean, it's truly remarkable. And so I'm excited to be here. On behalf of the applicants, I'm going to turn it over to Joe and Simon and to provide a few comments, and then I'll come back up, like I said, and walk through the highlights of what is being requested tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Good evening, Mayor, council members, new council members, Ms. Mew and Mr. Reese. Nice to be here. My name is Joe Graziosi. I'm Executive Vice President of RXR. I've had the pleasure of landing here 4 years ago on December 18th to look at this project, and I've been a fixture here since then, frankly, and I'm happy to be part of that. Let me just also reiterate Jason's comment about staff. From the time I got here till the time we announced the Children's Hospital in July, since July, we've worked night and day. I'm talking about meetings twice weekly with 20 people in a room and your staff leading down that path to figure out everything that's been discussed tonight. And it's no easy task, and you've heard me say this before. Your staff is very good at what they do. I'm 40 plus years in this industry, plus a lot. This gray hair shows that. And I've often said, and I've been on record saying that I can only count to 5 at the end of the day of staffs that I've kind of worked with in communities like this. And I've done this all over the country, and in fact, all over the world. So they should be recognized for what they do, and they're not giving anything away. Trust you me when I say they're not giving anything away. From, the moment we open the front door to the moment we get to your staff standing here before you this evening, advising you that this is something that you should move forward on, it doesn't come without a lot of conversation, a lot of give and take, and a lot of pain on my side, and I'm just going to say that publicly. I want to recognize that my partner Simon in the Children's Hospital, who's going to speak after me, we have in the room folks from McAdams, folks from RXR, folks from Children's Hospital. This team, 20 plus people, have been really gearing forward to make this happen, and I think it's a really incredible opportunity. And I characterize this, and the mayor and council, I'm not short on words, and I do apologize, but it's important for me when I get my opportunity to speak in front of you in this audience that I have my voice heard, as others have this evening. By the way, I'm not building a data center, just in case you were wondering. I did look at it, though. I want to say 4 things, or 4 points. This is a win, 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 what's been put before you this evening. Why? Win number 1, economics. Everything that's been discussed, including what Children's is going to bring to the party here in Apex, there's not a dime that's coming out of Apex. Bus terminal, on us. Rec center, on us. The path around the linear park, not necessarily mentioned, and I mean that with no disrespect, Amanda. We have to maintain all that, but you're going to be able to program it and use it. Our people are going to cut the grass. We're going to pay for the maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. Win number 1, economics. Economics. And we talk about the changes in the thresholds. The thresholds were set to ensure that the economics would be there. And that some house builder, which I've said 100 times on record, I've only built 3 houses. They were all for me and all the roofs leak. We're not house builders at the end of the day. Number 2, transportation, okay? You talk about something that is a pie in the sky dream in 2035 for what Amanda said publicly, estimated to cost $70 million, double it, because you know none of those numbers are going to work. No, instead, we sat down, Russell, is Russell here, and Marty, and the rest of the I'm sorry, there's Russell, with Russell and Shannon and the team in transportation. And there were a lot of no's until, I think it was Shannon that finally got me there, that said, listen, we're going to take this away, but we need you to build this bus terminal and we need you to pay for it. And we said yes. We said yes. Now, a question was asked, I think, by you, Mr. Gray, about timing. I'd answer it a little differently. I'd answer it by saying relative to transportation and recreation. I'm going to answer it together. On the recreation side, we were to give you a certain amount of acreage to build a certain amount of things. And to put a little bit of moment in it, we were to tell you where it would be located by the 1,000 permit or CO for a house, okay? So that's 3-4 years from today. Then you got to figure out where you're going to find the money to build it, right? Which that's another 3 or 4 years from today. So now we're up to 8 years. We're showing up, right, within the confines of what ultimately will be the developer agreement with a horizon that's 3 to 5 years. It's done and paid for, both the bus terminal and the recreation facility, okay? So win-win, right? Because you're going to get what you were looking for or what you need, as Mr. Reese said earlier, relative to what he's heard about what is needed within the requirement. And then make no mistake, in this recreation center deal that we put forward, your people are going to decide what needs to be in it, not us, right? You're going to say it needs to be programmed this way, or that way, and we're going to build it, right? And that's what we do for a living, right? We build. So we'll be able to build it and incorporate it in a manner where it will fit in the early days of Viridia rather than the later days of Viridia. And again, in that win on transportation, both my colleague from the Children's Hospital, Simon, as well as I, are building bus stops within our whole development where you don't even have a busing route yet. But we're putting it in place so it's ready for tomorrow. And we're thinking logically about how can we get to tomorrow and how can we build something, right? Why build the roadway systems without that today, or without the pad where the shelter might be today, and not, if it's 3 years, it's 3 years, if it's 5 years, 5, if it's 10, it's 10, but it's there and it's ready to go. So staff and ourselves thinking logically about how we can move this process forward. And then lastly, I just want to mention that this is a decade and a half. Probably none of you was sitting here a decade and a half ago talking about Viridia. And not to blow the RXR horn, but I'm going to do it. And that is that when we came to town 4 years ago and looked at this project, and we met with many of you and your staff, and I'm always going to pick on Marty Stone because I love the guy. And he looked at me with those glazed eyes and said, here comes another knucklehead from New York or from some other place that thinks they're going to come into Viridia and make this happen. And I think it was maybe 6 months into it where we started to shine and we started to move forward and we started to dig and we started to move dirt and we started to announce things. And then next, the Children's Hospital. And who knows what's coming forward. And tonight, and the approvals that we require, which I'm asking you to strongly consider, is only going to make our fall winds better for all of us. Thank you.
I always love going after Joe. Mr. Mayor, Council, my name's Simon George. I oversee real estate development and facilities for NC Children's. On behalf of NC Children's, we are still so excited to be coming to Apex. I'll just give a quick update on some of the work that we've been working on. We, as you all know, signed a PSA in the summer with RXR. We're working through the due diligence right now, a couple of open items, but we will be looking to close on the land in early next year. We're in the process of hiring architects. We'll have those contracts executed in the coming months. So we'll start programming and design. Then we're moving into hiring construction management companies. And then in the not too distant future, we'll be looking to obviously breaking ground. So we are so excited. But just to echo a couple of other comments, this has been such an amazing process working with this town. You have such phenomenal staff. We could not have got through all of this so quickly without your staff. I do want to just call out a few people: Amanda, Russell, Shannon, Diane, and your whole administration. You're absolutely phenomenal, so thank you. We do have the NCC and RXR teams here this evening, so if you do have questions, technical questions, we'll be all happy to answer them. So with that, back to you, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.
And whereas Simon likes following Joe, I hate following Simon because he sounds so smart. It makes me just, anything he says just sounds smart. But he just sounds it. So just quickly moving through the slides. So this was the slide that Amanda, I think, was referring to, highlighting what you see in blue on your screen is the roughly 225 acres that is designated for the North Carolina Children's Hospital campus. We've highlighted on the screen a handful of the changes that are being made. As you've seen in your staff report, there's a lot of changes that are being made. Those changes are being made because, as you're aware, when Viridia was planned over 15 years ago, when it was approved, almost 15 years ago, it was approved with the idea that all of these developments that would come along would be developed on this kind of grid network with small blocks and build-tos where you bring the buildings up close to the right-of-way. It feels like a city. Well, obviously, a children's hospital campus doesn't fit well within that mold, and so the vast majority of the changes associated with what we refer to as Part 1 are really changes to the SD plan in order to facilitate a campus-like setting rather than the urban environment that was contemplated for the children's hospital. With respect to the Part 2, as noted in this, as it's called in the staff report, kind of the Viridia-wide changes that are being requested, they really fall into primarily two substantive categories. There's a couple of cleanup items. There was the Perry Road cleanup, talk about the satisfaction of the development criteria and the thresholds, but primarily it was the change related to rail being replaced with the bus transit center. And as noted in the staff report, as well as the presentations you've heard tonight, there's a variety of things that go along with that bus transit center, not just identifying where it's going to be located, but also the things that go into that bus transit center to ensure that there will be continued opportunities for public transit throughout the Viridia campus. The second thing is that programmable recreation facility. You all have talked about it already. I won't beat that horse. Just otherwise to note, I agree with Joe. You will get a facility a heck of a lot faster with a developer on the hook, not only to build it, but also the town gets to design it. You know, that is included in the criteria that are provided here. It's not like the town is giving up the ability to influence the outcome associated with that facility. Quite to the contrary, RXR is on the hook to essentially work with the design team that they employ, that they pay, but it's going to be the town's design to ensure that what the town gets is what the town is looking for in this area, in this park search area, to have a programmable indoor recreational facility. And so with that, again, we're thoroughly excited to be here tonight. We're here to answer any questions you all may have. As Joe mentioned, we have a number of consultants here with us this evening, so if you have technical questions, I will quickly defer to them, but otherwise, we would respectfully request you all's approval of this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Any questions for? Who wants to start? Sounds like none. We're ready. Maybe?
Not question, but I want to make a comment. Thank you, Joe, Simon, and forgot your name, Jason. Yes, and all the party involved to make the Children's Hospital possible. It's huge for Apex. I also like the adjustment you adopt with the changes happened. I like you are replacing the real with the bus transportation center, and also replace the park with that recreation center. I think it's more practical and benefits residents and the public. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I got some comments. I'm not sure what we should go for. I guess now is great. Let me just say to my new colleagues, it's not always as complicated. Like this is quite a rezoning amendment. Typically, when we're talking about amendments to rezoning, it's 1 or 2 provisions or something. You modify this or that, and this is really complicated. And they're not always going to be like this. This is your first one, but not too bad. Yeah. So the best I can tell, what we have here is a large set of changes to provide some flexibility for the NC Children's Hospital, which is great. To provide updating the transit, where we're moving a rail station that was envisioned in 2011. That's not going to happen, and replacing it with some other commitments related to some bus stops and some transit center. That seems like a pretty good swap to me. Perry interchange, again, something that changed in the past 15 years. Deeming some things to be satisfied regarding mixes of uses. Transit center, and then to the recreation requirements, which I think, again, has been called out by several of the speakers and my colleagues, it's actually a really big deal. And again, what I understand is the original plan as envisioned in 2011 contemplated Viridia putting, parks here, ball fields, all sorts of neat stuff they thought were a good idea then. And instead, what's being proposed is we are going to get a building that they're going to build for us, and they're going to hand us the keys. And that's actually a pretty good deal because it takes us a really long time to build buildings, and I'm excited about someone else building us a building. And as Councilmember Gray said earlier, or maybe, sorry, Councilmember Reese, we recently completed the master plan for our Parks Department that called out the need for indoor space versus outdoor space. And we have several projects providing more outdoor space, so this again is a good trade. And the other thing that Joe mentioned related to the greenways, there's essentially some greenways going through Viridia that Viridia is going to build, Viridia is going to maintain, but we can use and program. And that's a really good deal too. And I think if we can do that going forward, that'd be great. People maintain our greenways for us. That's unusual, and that's so all in all, it's a very complicated rezoning, but it seems to me to be in the interest of the town, provide some uses, some facilities that we really need, and still meets our goal of having a development, and that's green, has parks facilities, is supported by transit, and of course Apex, the council, the staff are very supportive of the Children's Hospital, and the flexibility there is something we're happy to work with them to provide. So I'm supportive of these changes. Thank you so much to staff who worked hard on this. I know, Joe, you kind of alluded to it. I've heard there was some shouting, maybe some back and forth.
A little bit.
Yep, our staff works hard to get the best from each project for the town of Apex, and that's their job. And Joe knows that, and staff does a great job here, and that's why we have all the stuff I discussed. So thank you all.
And I'll comment on, I think what tends to happen when we get rezonings is people tend to think that these plans are set in stone, but this is a great example of the flexibility that's necessary in order to make adjustments for what is actually coming our way. You know, we looked at rail initially. I think that was a very, that was a big, grandiose ask at the time, something I was very supportive of. But we also recognize that timing, cost, other regional partners needing to be necessary. The feasibility of rail, unfortunately, started to slip away, but we appreciate the foresight of thinking we still need to address the transportation issue. So the bus routes, the changing of routes, and the bus hub system, I think, will help carry on that need. And I'll say this, it's that sort of flexibility that's getting us a facility, that's making a lot of these changes. This flexibility isn't easy. This was a very heavy lift in a very short period of time. Staff is to be commended for giving the pushback. I appreciate you doing that. We appreciate also all of you for assisting in coming forward with good ideas and being solutions oriented. That's a great thing. So to me, this is a great example of what we're hoping to get from other developers as they come before us with these sort of projects, because now we have a proof of concept that it can be done. On a slightly different but related note, I do want to ask the manager to, because we are in the middle of our budgeting season, this was a big, heavy lift for our staff. It does beg the question whether or not we have the appropriate number of staffers to be able to help meet the need of future changes, flexibility, the sort of things that we have coming up. So it's not a question that you need to answer now, but I do think it's something that we need to take a hard look at, because, planning board met on this yesterday. We're getting it today. I recognize that our staff is putting in some real good hours on that, and it's something that, in order to be responsive to not simply one applicant, but the several other projects, because I'm sure in the middle of this, they were still doing a bunch of other work that's already out there. We may need to start thinking in terms of, and I encourage my colleagues to keep this on the front burner, whether or not we need to start contemplating for our purposes, whether or not planning and some of these other staffs need to get a re-examination as to the manpower requirements in order to make sure that we're getting these things done. So I just throw that out as a conversation piece for a later time, but I'm supportive of this and appreciate the developer and their flexibility for coming forward with these great ideas.
All right, very well. Thank you so much.
I'll be brief. I just want to say something really quickly. And just first want to say, so rezonings aren't supposed to take all Sunday to review all of the things for hours. I'm kidding. I was going to say it's great. It was definitely. I didn't know if this was going to be an every week thing.
It will.
Yeah. Well, I was just promised that they're not as complicated as this.
He lied.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like some clarification. In all seriousness, the first thing I want to say, Mr. Barron, I really appreciate what you said earlier about Apex being a family-first town, and this project really fits that. And so thank you, Mr. Graziosi, and what you said. The theme seems to be here, obviously, ambition, and then we need to be pragmatic within, once we're able to assess the likelihood of being successful with that ambition. I lastly wanted to say that I appreciated that it seems like the theme of the hospital is, as it lays out, an emphasis on nature and warmth, and that seems to speak to the entire project across Viridia. And so I'm appreciative of that consistency. Looking forward to 25,000 square feet of indoor rec space, and I'll support this project. Thank you.
All right. Good enough. All right, before we get to support, let's open up the public hearing officially. We have one speaker, Lynn Wilson. Lynn Wilson, sign up to speak. Okay. All right, we'll close it now. Is there a motion to approve?
Yes, Mayor. We're doing 2, 3, and 5, right?
4.
Well, 5 became 4, so
Five
you're doing each one with separate votes.
One separate votes on all of
We're
them?
doing separate votes.
Separate votes.
Okay, all right. We'll start with 2 first then.
All right, then. I move approval of the amendments to the thoroughfare and collector street plan map and bicycle and pedestrian system plan map of the Apex Transportation Plan for consistency with the proposed rezoning 25 CZ 18 as presented.
All right, motion Mahaffey.
Second.
Second, Gray. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Public hearing 3.
Let me keep going.
Go ahead.
All right, I motion approval of the transit plan map of the amendments to the transit plan map, the Apex Transportation Plan related to 25 CZ 18, Viridia Sustainable Development, conditional amendment, as presented.
Motion Mahaffey.
Second.
Second, Reese. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Public hearing 4.
Motion approval of rezoning application 25 CZ 15, Viridia SD Plan amendments.
All right, motion Mahaffey.
Second.
Second move. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Merry Christmas. Thank you. I know.
One more.
I know. Got through that one. Yeah, exactly. We're going to take, hate to do this, but we have to go to a bio breaks here. So we're going to take a 10-minute recess, come back at 7:50. Thank you. back in session. We'll move now to public hearing 5, environmental enhancement plan amendments for Viridia. Amanda Bunce.
Good evening again. So the next amendments related to Viridia are amendments to the Environmental Enhancement Plan, which was adopted in February of 2023 as a requirement of the SD plan to provide for additional sustainability standards. The EEP includes sections related to building standards, environmental and natural resource protection, stormwater and surface water management, land management, and air quality protections. Just like with the SD plan amendments, the amendments to the EEP are divided into 2 parts. Part 1 that is related solely to the hospital campus, and Part 2 which is related to all of Viridia. So for the Part 1 amendments, these exemptions primarily relate to energy efficiency standards in the EEP. And those are the requirement to demonstrate improvement of energy performance by 20%, requirement of a minimum of 50% of non-residential buildings to be certified under a third-party certification program, the requirement for bathroom fixtures and water-using appliances to meet certain standards. So those are the exemptions proposed for the hospital campus only. Are there any questions about those proposed exemptions? The amendments to Part 2, that apply to all of Viridia, relate solely to the standards for EV charging, EV parking. When the EEP was adopted in February of 2023, staff was working on changes to the EV parking standards and the addition of EV-ready standards, which is essentially all of the equipment with the exception of the charging station. And then those changes were approved just after the EEP in May with a higher requirement than even what staff was anticipating. The council wanted to see a stronger commitment, and that was what was approved. And so that sets the context for some of the amendments proposed tonight. Instead of complying with the UDO standards for EV parking as currently specified in the EEP, these are the proposed changes. Any use on the North Carolina Children's Healthcare Campus, it will provide 0.3% of required spaces as EV charging and EV-ready spaces for 1.5% of the required parking spaces. For multifamily, it's a reduction of 5% to the EV charging spaces, but an increase of 5% to the EV-ready spaces. There's no current standard for higher education uses other than the requirement that parking structures provide a certain percentage of EV parking. And so they are setting a standard that higher education uses, so this will apply to the future Wake Tech campus, shall provide 1% of the required parking as EV charging and 1.5% of the required parking as EV ready. There's no change proposed for elementary, junior, and high schools, so that would still comply with what's required by the UDO. All other uses will be required to provide the UDO required amount of EV charging spaces and 10% of the required parking as EV ready. That represents a 5% reduction in EV ready. And then the developer is proposing something new, that in lieu of EV ready spaces as defined in the ordinance, EV capable spaces shall be allowed. And so this is the installation of raceway, the conduit that forms that pathway for the wiring, from the parking space to the nearest electrical distribution room for structured parking or the nearest manhole or handhole for surface parking. So the wire, circuitry, receptacles, electric panels, distribution equipment, all of that that's normally required for EV ready, which could sit for an extended period of time and not be used, will not be required if they choose to do the EV capable. So it saves money on the front end, but requires all that equipment to be installed when it's needed. So the key is having that conduit installed, which is what we've been looking for, like in residential development, where we get the conduit for wiring for solar panels for the roof, to make sure that conduit is installed when the house is constructed. And this is just a chart showing the UDO requirements beside of the proposed changes for the standards for Viridia. Staff is recommending approval of the proposed amendments, and the planning board unanimously recommended approval at their meeting last night. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Potts. Questions? All right, hear none. All right. Got anything?
No comments, Mayor, members of council, Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group. No substantive comments. I think Amanda's done a great job of summarizing the nature of our changes. Here to answer any questions, but obviously the changes that are being requested are related to the Children's Hospital campus and the continued development of Viridia. Thanks.
So much, appreciate it. All right, we'll open up public hearing for this item. No one signed up to speak. Public hearing for comment is closed. Is there a motion?
I have one comment to say. I appreciate the flexibility on EV capable. This is something that I think gives flexibility with regard to how and what charging standards for EVs will eventually kind of settle out. Nothing frustrates me more than when I drive to Wilmington, they have a public parking lot and they have a Chatamo charger and no one uses it because that standard was 5 years ago. And when talking to the folks down there, they're like, well, we built it to the standard as it was because our ordinance required it and they didn't have the flexibility. So I like the idea of being able to have the flexibility. So, motion to approve?
Motion, Gray.
Second.
Second, Mahaffey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Good. We'll move now to public hearing 6. Thank you, everyone. Thank y'all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Ready? Yep.
All right. Good evening. So this item is to close a portion of Walden Road. You all may recall on August 22nd, you all adopted a resolution supporting North Carolina Transportation's abandonment of the described 1,795-foot portion of Walden Road. This portion is an existing unpaved roadway that is located within the Friendship Village subdivision currently under construction. This new alignment of Walden Road, as you'll see on the screen here, will extend Walden Road from the northern property boundary to the southeast property near Hume Olive Road. Access to Evans Road will be replaced by the connection of Vitrine Way across the new Walden Road alignment. This portion closure and realignment of Walden Road will establish a safer intersection for vehicles and pedestrians at Evans Road. As you can see, this is where the Friendship Village development is taking place, and then this is kind of that future. As you see, Walden Road is currently running through here. This is what is being closed. They've already started construction here, so this is a formal request to close this portion of Walden Road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Coleman. Questions? Hearing none. All right, we'll open up public hearing for this item. No one signed up to speak. It's closed. Is there a motion?
I feel like we've closed this road a few times now, right?
Yes.
Yes, we have.
Yeah?
Just picking one.
Yep. I motion to approve.
All right, motion Mahaffey.
Second.
Second, Gray. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right. So public hearing 7, staff recommendation defer items until January 13th, 2026.
Need another motion to continue?
Yes, sir. Motion continue. Is that you?
I'll move we continue the amendments from November 2025 to January 13th, 2026.
All right, we have motion Mahaffey.
Second.
Second, Gray. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Finally, new business 2, Mr. Coleman.
I am going to introduce JP Paris, our Public Records Coordinator. He's worked very hard on his research. The memo was included in your agenda presentation, so I'll turn it over to JP.
All right,
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, Mayor, Town Council, JP Paris, Public Records Coordinator. Wanting to speak with you a little bit tonight about the Public Records Program we have here for the town and within the clerk's office. Some of the research I've done over the past few months in regards to some things that we've been looking at for your consideration and looking to get your direction on some of those things as we look to move forward. So just walking you through the agenda for what I want to cover. First thing we're going to cover is what the state law has to say on public records in general. We'll take a look at the public records program here in the clerk's office over the past few years, since about 2023. We'll take a look at the public records process. We'll go from start to finish. I'll take you through the process of how a public records request works here in the town, just to give you an idea of that. We'll take a look at some of the data over the past few years in regards to how many requests have been coming in, and as in regards to 2025, some of the data on request fulfillment. We'll take a look at some of the research that I've done and some of the background on that in regards to public records policies in different local governments around the state, how those are used and what they say about certain things. We'll take a look at some of the practices and the best practices and compare those to the town from those local governments we looked at. Then we'll take a step back, take a look at what the state law has to say about fees as it pertains to public records, and what other local governments in the state have done in regards to that. And then finally, we'll take a look at public records request software as a potential consideration. We'd like to have your support in moving forward with a budget amendment. We'll talk about some of the benefits of what a public records request software could bring to the town. And then finally, we'll take a look at the decision points that we have for you tonight and the feedback that we would like. And then at the end, there'll be time for some questions and discussion as well.
JP, just to address something that was brought up in public forum, you're not asking us to adopt a policy or vote on a policy with regard to fees tonight, right?
Yes, that is correct. So to be clear, the stuff for tonight is mostly informational only, and we are asking for your direction as we pursue any potential policy and anything in relation to that policy, which could be things such as fees. We'll go over that. That'll be included, some of that information. This is essentially meant to equip you with the information that you need to make these decisions moving forward. So no hard decisions, no approval of any policy or any fee tonight, but just kind of your kind of feeling things out and getting your direction as we move forward. Yep. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is public records in general as it pertains to the state law. So the main chapter for public records is General Statute Chapter 132, and then specifically as it pertains to public records request, Chapter 132-6. The general definition that the state statute provides for a public record is anything that is made in connection with the transaction of public business. Essentially what that means is any document, any written communication, any note, memo, anything that produces a physical or digital record, and that is in association with a town employee's job or with a town official's role is for the most part considered to be public record. I listed a few of the common examples of exceptions that are not public record. These are communications that are protected under attorney-client privilege, things like employee files, personnel files, things that's pretty much other than salary, start and end date. Most personnel files, things are not considered public record. Things like trade secrets. Statutes allow for a definition of what is considered to be a trade secret. These are things that are often included in contracts, in RFPs, RFQs. They are narrow and are specifically defined, but those are sometimes exceptions. Professional seals, these are often found on construction plans and are most common professional engineer seals. Those must be redacted before construction plans can be provided through a public records request. And then customer billing information is also not considered public record. So anybody's bill for a water or electric utility and whether or not they paid it is not considered to be public record. And then the last point here, the state statute says that a response for a public records request is required as promptly as possible. That is the language that the state statute uses. It does not provide a time frame or a set time that a request needs to be fulfilled. We do have an internal goal to try and fulfill as many requests as we can within 10 business days. That isn't always possible due to request size or scope, or due to the requirement of additional review for certain things. But we try to get as many as possible, and it is the goal of the town to have requests fulfilled within 10 business days, if at all possible. Really quickly, just wanted to take you back over time through the public records program. So in 2023, myself and our deputy town clerk, Ashley Gentry, arrived, and Ashley had taken over originally the public records process from Alan, who was doing everything at the time. One of the main things that she established was a tracking system for public records requests. There wasn't really that we are aware of, at least a system for records to have tracking numbers associated with them so that each request could be identified uniquely. Also just helps to kind of keep an extra layer of accountability for each request, to keep them tracked and to have them be unique. She also created the first standard operating procedure for the public records request process with the town, and that's kind of like our internal training manual that we use, and that is helpful for cross-training within our department, so that there's redundancy with the roles that can fulfill public records requests. For example, if I was out for an extended period of time, there would be backup, and this process wouldn't have to pause. Second half of 2023, at the time I was a legislative assistant. I took over a lot of the public records request process. We continued to refine that process over time. And then every couple of weeks I meet with Alan, provide him bi-weekly reports, and meet with him on public records requests that are outstanding, any questions that I have. So he's always kept in the loop regarding that. And then we've also had some additional data that we've been creating with public records requests, some of which was in your memo and you'll see later on here. And then in July, I accepted the public records coordinator role, and we're hoping that will add additional staff capacity to be able to work on public records requests, as well as to expand and to improve the public records program as a whole. So this is just a quick visual of how the process works when somebody submits a public records request to the town. At first, it gets to the clerk's office, and we take it through what we call our intake process. This is essentially where we put all the information into a spreadsheet that we maintain and give it a unique tracking number, so that every request is submitted. It has the dates that it was submitted associated with it. It has what they're requesting, has when it goes to staff, when it's completed. All of that is kept, on that line item with each request. And the first thing we do is provide the requester with their tracking number for each of their requests, so they know what their number is. If they want to refer back to something with the town, they have that identifier. And then we identify which departments, if any, would have responsive records to the request. We provide the request to them. And then at that point, we try to have all of that part done within 2 business days after a request is submitted to the town. From there, we try to give staff about 5 business days from that point before we'll follow up with them on where they are in providing the records for the request. Sometimes staff will need to request extra time in order to provide all responsive records, or to continue searching to ensure that there are not any additional records. But we try to have that portion done, if at all possible, within 7 business days. And so at that point, it comes back to the clerk's office, and what we are doing there is reviewing the request to make sure all components of the request are addressed either through records that were provided from staff, or from staff confirming that they do not have responsive records to each portion of the request. We'll additionally go through and do some layer of review for non-public information. These are things like more simple redactions on things like engineering seals on construction plans and for attorney-client privileged communications. But if necessary, we sometimes do engage with our friends in the attorney's office for some additional guidance or for review for certain requests. And so once all of these components of the process are done, we provide all responsive records to the requester, and our goal, as I mentioned, is to have that done, this whole process, within 10 business days. I want to give you an idea of the trends that we've been seeing over the past few years since we started keeping data on public records requests in 2023. In 2023, we had 171 total requests come in. In 2024, that number went up to 217, and then this year, 2025, that number is going up even more, with an estimated total to be about 308 by the end of the month. With this very small sample size, granted, we are seeing just over these past few years that the number of requests is increasing at an increasing rate. While we certainly don't believe that the percent increase each year will continue rising indefinitely, we do expect that more requests will continue to come in as the town continues to grow and as there continues to be large projects that the town is involved in that has a lot of community interest associated with them.
JP, I see we're tracking requests. Do we track number of requesters?
I don't have that data on hand. Do you mean like number of individual requesters in a given year?
Right, because we see, 308. If we've got 308 in 2025 and 217 in 2024, but it's, let's say, the number of requesters in 2024 was, say, 100, but the number of requesters in 2025 is 5. That seems like a data point.
Sure. Yeah. So I don't have that exact data on hand. What I will say is there are multiple people who have submitted multiple requests throughout the year. I would say, just as an estimation, there's probably at least 250 unique people that have submitted a request this year. I can definitely get you that data, so don't, that's not
necessary.
Don't hold me to that.
No, just didn't know if that was something that we were also tracking.
Yeah, no, that isn't something we're currently tracking. We can definitely, pull that very quickly. It's just all the names are associated with each number in the spreadsheet as well, so we can definitely get you that if you'd like, but I don't have that available right now. So taking a look at some of the fulfillment data this year for public records requests, the median number of business days to fulfill a public records request so far this year is 8 business days. And taking a look at the chart below it, what that shows you is a range of days, with the first one being between 0 and 10 days, and the y-axis showing you how many requests were completed within each bucket of those business days. So as you can see, the majority of requests are fulfilled within our 10-day goal, but we do have more outside of that that we were not able to have fulfilled within those 10 days. We would like to see as many requests as possible within that 0 to 10-day goals, but as I mentioned, there are a lot of factors that go into that for any given request. So just to give you an idea of kind of the distribution of the way that's looking here. So now I want to take you to kind of what started some of this research. In June of this year, we were invited, as was public records officials and employees across the state in local governments by the UNC School of Government to start participating in what was a new public records working group. It was a group established by the School of Government to bring together the local government, town clerk's offices, IT staff, all kinds of different people that work with public records, to talk about some of the challenges that they have, some of the developments, some of the best practices that they may be able to share, and work through some of those issues. And one of the first things that we discussed, or was discussed in those meetings, was public records policies. It's not currently something that we have, and it's not currently something that every municipality or county has, but it was something that was a topic of discussion, and some of the local governments that had it said it was something that was very helpful for them to have adopted and approved by their council. And so it was something we wanted to look more into. And so I did some research in kind of August, September timeframe of this year on local governments around the state, and kind of what they had, if they had a public records policy, and if so, what their public records policy was used for, what it said. And most of those findings were contained in the memo that you had in your agenda packet. And we'll, of course, talk a little bit more about some of the high-level information on that tonight as well. And that brings us to the presentation tonight and some of the discussion and key points we're looking at moving forward. Just a brief summary of the kind of research sample. There were 44 local governments, which included both counties and municipalities, that I analyzed and searched across the state. From that sample set, I found 10 public records policies, which were passed by both larger and smaller governments. Some of the main findings, as I mentioned, in the Public Records Working Group, a lot of offices across the state are considering the Public Records Policy. We're looking at how it can help improve processes. And in most of these policies, they define things like the instructions for the requesters, the expectations for both staff and for the requester, and helpful information regarding how to submit a effective public records request, things that the town or whatever municipality or local government agency, things that they may not maintain, and helpful resources to kind of help that process along. And they also spoke to fees. And we'll talk about some of the public records request fees that are in state law in just a moment here. And in these policies, some of them did include what was called a special service charge, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So we want to briefly go through this slide. This just shows kind of a comparison of the practices of several local governments around the state. These are both counties and municipalities, and just seeing how Apex compares in our process and goals. So the goal to intake, kind of get the request started, get the requester their number, get it to staff. With most of these is about typically 2 to 3 business days. And then the goal to fulfill the request is typically between 5 and 10 business days on a lot of these. One thing that we did find and have now started to implement in our process is that a lot of these local government agencies provide, when it gets to the point where it's near their goal of the 5 or 10 days, they provide an estimated time frame of when they could expect the request to be completed, if that is information that can reasonably be estimated. And if not, continue being in contact with them and providing them regular updates. So that's something we've been trying to be better at, especially with larger requests as they may expand past our 10 business day goal. And then secondary, kind of in relation to that, we've also started in some cases when it gets to 10 business days where part of a request we have the records ready to provide for, has been provided by staff and has been reviewed, they're ready to go, but there's still parts of the request that are not ready or have not identified all the responsive records. We'll work with the requester and provide them what we do have around that 10 business day time frame, and then continue to provide them with updates and records as they do come in and are reviewed to be able to keep giving them what we do have around that 10-day mark if that is possible. Okay. So I want to talk about what state law says in regards to fees for public records. Now there's 2 main types that I'm wanting to kind of cover with you tonight. The first is kind of the more simple one, and this is one that essentially every local government has at least adopted in some form, and we do as well. That is for fees for the actual cost of reproducing a record. And now this is for things like paper copies and the ink cost associated if somebody wants a record in a printed copy, or if somebody requests a record to be downloaded on the flash drive, essentially the cost of that flash drive. Now we do have things like this addressed in our fee schedule. I do want to note that we have had people in the past, very, very few, but we have had people request paper copies or records to be provided on a flash drive. Since I've been here, we have not charged fees, even though they have been in our fee schedule, because those requests were very small and it is very infrequent. So just wanted you to know that as well. The second point here is the special service fee. State law allows for what is referred to as the special service fee in cases of extensive use of supervisory or clerical assistance. And essentially what this does is allow for, originally in that first fee, staff time and staff salary, anything like that is not included as actual cost of reproducing a record. This allows for, in this case, for some staff time costs to be recouped on requests that fit this definition of extensive use of supervisory or clerical assistance. It is important to note that this definition it also does not provide specific guidelines or specific parameters on what extensive means in this case, but we'll take a look on one of the next slides coming up as far as how some other local governments have interpreted that and what they have in place. It's also important to note that this fee cannot include review for non-public information. So this includes if I'm going through construction plans, redacting seals, that time cannot be included in any type of calculation for a special service fee if that was to be the case. Same thing if our attorney's office was reviewing anything, that would not be included as well. Now, important, this is not currently something that we have in place. We do not have anything in regards to this. And it is also important that we are not necessarily recommending doing or not doing a special service fee. We are simply looking for your feedback and your direction on if this is something that you want us to continue exploring and to potentially include in a future public records policy. So here's the matrix that shows some of these special service fees that 8 different local governments around the state have adopted. The key thing I want to highlight here is kind of this line here, definition of extensive request for a special service fee. And this is where the local government provides their definition of what extensive means for a given request. And the common thread among these is that threshold is typically set at 4 hours of applicable staff time for a specific request. And then there is a little bit more variety as far as the rate for the special service fee. Some tie it to the rate of a specific position or to the position of whichever town employee is working on that request and providing records to fulfill. And some provide just a base level of time, a set fee, no matter who is working on that. So this is just some data to kind of give you an idea of how those definitions are set by different local governments who have adopted this. As I mentioned, the most common threshold begins at about 4 hours of staff time, and the typical charges are around the $20 to $30 an hour time frame. Important thing to note on special service fees is that in conversation with several local governments through the School of Government Public Records Working Group, a lot of them report this, that have this fee, a lot of them report it to be a very, very rarely and sometimes never used fee if they have it on the books. It seems that in most cases, they'll talk with the requester, they'll say they have this in their policy, this could be a request that may incur this special service fee, and the most common things that happens at that point is the requester will pare back their request a little bit, maybe narrow their time frame down a little bit, and so it gets it back under that 4 hour time frame. So it's very rarely something that they actually collect anything on. In fact, a lot of them, had said that they've had it in place for a few years, but have never actually collected that fee. And then the final thing here is that in those conversations with the School of Government, it was recommended that if we wanted, or if a local government wanted to charge a special service fee in accordance with the state law, then they should have something like a public records policy that can be used to define the specific thresholds and the costs so that it can be the same for everyone and that it isn't anything that's up to interpretation. And the final thing I wanted to cover with you tonight is public records software. So this is a common tool that a lot of local governments around the state use to help with their public records request process. I believe out of the 44 local governments that I had surveyed throughout this, about half of those had a public records request software that they used for those requests. And that's with both larger and smaller local governments than Apex. It can definitely help centralize the workflow. There's a lot of components that go into a public records request. You're working with a lot of different departments. There's a lot of email threads that go out that end up, and a lot of things can sometimes get lost in translation. So this keeps everything in one location, both with staff internally and with the requester. So it certainly helps with centralizing the communication. It would also present us an opportunity for increased self-service for requesters when they're going in to look at their request. We would be able to set different stages. We'd be able to move a request into a review stage, for example. They could just log on, put in their request number, and then they would be able to see, okay, the request is in review. It should be coming up soon, rather than having to reach out to us for us to let them know that. That would be one thing. And then also is increased opportunities for transparency. One thing a public records request software would allow us to do is once requests are completed, we could publish those requests, which would allow anybody to go in. It would be a public-facing portal. It would allow them to see the requests that have been submitted, see when they were submitted, when staff responded, and what documents were provided to fulfill that public records request. There's also opportunities for implementation with the PD Records Division. If you didn't know, there's technically two different divisions that work with public records. The police department has their own records division, as there is a whole host of additional requirements and different records that they work with. So they have their own process, and then the clerk's office handles basically all the other departments. So there's an opportunity where we can maybe combine those, where the processes are still kept separate, but they are included in the same software. So people wouldn't have to, we often get police records requests, and then we have to refer them to the police department. So it would help with keeping everything central there. We are requesting a budget amendment to get this started here in the current fiscal year. The estimate for the first year and startup costs would be about $20,000, and then it would be roughly $10,000 recurring annually. This would depend on different add-ins and the quote that we got specifically, but this is a good ballpark estimate. But we are requesting your support to move forward with that as well. And then finally, just wanted to present you with what we're looking for your feedback and your potential decisions on tonight. We'd like to know whether you would like us to continue with drafting a public records policy. If you would like any additional information or research, please let us know that as well, and we can certainly do what we can in regards to that. We'd like to know if you would like us in development of a potential public records policy to include the special service charge for extensive requests, and if so, what kind of specifics and thresholds would you like to look at there, if that was something you were interested in pursuing. Any general feedback you may have on the public records program, we're happy to take that into account, and then whether or not you would like to appropriate funds via budget amendment in this fiscal year for a public records software. And that is all I have for you this evening. Alan and I are both here, happy to take any questions that you may have.
Great job, man. I just have a quick question on a special service fee. And in your research, I know you said it wasn't really charged often based on the municipalities that you reached out to. Mm-hmm. Just a scenario, like if someone is facing a hardship, mm-hmm. and it is something that's really complex, sensitive, and it goes well past 4 hours to 8, what would be the response to that?
So first, I want to be sure that nothing that in anything with a special service fee, the goal would never to be to prevent requesters from accessing records. Obviously, in the case that you're mentioning there, if somebody has a hardship and they're maybe not able to pay the applicable fee, that's certainly something that we want to be sensitive to if we do move forward with this. I don't have a specific answer in regards to how we would handle that. That would certainly be something that we would take a look at if you give us the direction tonight to continue moving forward with, to look into how other local governments may have any language in regards to that. But that certainly is a very, very important thing, and it's not something that we want to be prohibitive by any means.
All right. And I'll just offer, JP mentioned this a little earlier, but in most cases, the jurisdictions that do have a fee, the requester will modify their request so it gets it back under that threshold. So that is what we've seen, or that's what other jurisdictions have offered to us, has been the practice that most of the time the requester will modify their request so that it gets it back under that threshold.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Can you provide an example? You think that the request is an extensive request?
Mm-hmm. So the important thing about in the research that I've found is that it's important to have it be quantifiable as a definition for extensive rather than it to be interpretive. So we don't want to have a situation where staff is just reading a request and they think, oh, this is extensive, we'll charge them X amount. If this was something that we did put into place, we had your support on this, we would have staff on request that may reach that point, have them track their time, working on each of those applicable specific requests, similar to how an attorney would do billable hours. So that there is a specific time that is being calculated, and it isn't just up to any one person or any one department on if a request gets to that point. So that would be what I would say in regards to that. The definition would need to be kept in something that is quantifiable rather than subjective.
Thank you.
I think in talking with Alan about this earlier, something to keep in mind is a lot of people may not know that their requests are extensive when they first make them, and that I think is the issue, is they think they're making a simple request, you know, or whatever it may be, and they assume it's quick and easy, but actually on the back end for the systems that have to be searched, the number of people and departments that have been involved, it ends up being pretty extensive. And the hope is, you know, that if we give that feedback that this actually extensive and there's this fee schedule, they could scope that to certain departments or certain people or whatever needs to be done. So I think part of it is simply awareness that assumptions people are making about the scope of their requests that aren't obvious to someone who doesn't work in records management. Sure.
I mean, my thought on that is, I mean, I think first, I appreciate you giving us the decision points because I think that makes it a lot easier. I think we do need a policy. I think the development of the policy will ultimately help lead to the question of whether or not a special service charge is something that we need to follow up on. I would say give us a policy first. Let's defer the question on the service charge until we get at least a little bit more of a baseline, because I do think that as we take a look at the question of the fees itself, a lot of the questions that we have about the fees, I think will be alleviated once we get a policy in place. And my understanding is that a number of the places that have the service fee that aren't collecting the service fee, but they've had a policy in place, so it makes it a lot easier to be able to say, here's the policy which identifies what is going to be a, you know, to quantify the amount of time for an extraordinary or a complicated request, and then you can then kind of take the next step of saying, here's the cost that's going to be associated with it. So I think I would, my analysis would be going through, let's develop the policy. I think that's the thing that we need. Good on you guys for identifying that. And then I do think that exploring public records software, I would love to know what other municipalities are using, because I think that would be you know, I think a good data point for us as we're looking at costs and things of that nature. And I know that they're not here, but I would love to make sure, love to get kind of a little bit of a cross feed on how that would interact with APD and their, you know, what processes we're going to have to make sure that we're not placing a software solution onto APD where they may already have a software solution in place, and maybe their software solution may be the thing that we want to take a look at. So I think there's ample room to explore on the record software, but I do think that you know, we live in a digital age. It doesn't make sense to not have a digital protocol in order to help track, train, identify, and close out these items.
Yeah, and to address what you said there, we can certainly, I can get you the exact municipalities out of those 44 that have that records request software and the exact ones that they use. So I can definitely get you that data just for your consideration. And then the second point about the police department, it's something that we can explore with them. It's if it doesn't work, you know, if they like what they're doing and they don't want to be included on this, you know, it isn't anything that we have to include them or we can't do it at all. Just wanted to highlight that it could be a way to centralize some of that into the same thing.
I appreciate that.
We had conversations with Chief Johansson as well several months back about the possibility of this, and he was certainly open to that. We also met with Susan Metz, who is the records manager, so forth, in PD. And she was also open to exploring it. She also referenced that at one point in the town's history several years back, the question was raised of whether a software would be appropriate. And I think at that time there were still different systems and protocols, but that they weren't open to exploring. I think that mindset may be a little bit different now, and so we wanted to offer that as a possible efficiency measure.
Yeah, appreciate that. I think those are good data points for us, so that when the policy comes back to us, we can tweak those little details along the way. But this is definitely reflective of a lot of work, and you're addressing a question that has been posed by this council, and ultimately you guys are coming up with solutions to it. So thank you, JP, for your hard work on this. Alan, thank you. Please pass along our thanks to Ashley as well. I know this was a big team effort and a heavy lift.
JP did most of it, so kudos to him.
So is everybody in agreement, pursue public records policy?
So I have a question.
Sure.
So first off, I just want to say thank you again for your presentation, and Alan, for your hard work on this. My question relates to, so first off, adhering to the spirit of the law, right, which is transparency and sunshine, allowing the public to have access to the ongoings of the town's business. My question is did you come across in those 44 municipalities or any of your research policies regarding what one might call super users? So like, for instance, journalists, you know, I imagine that larger municipalities probably have a significant number of records requests on a regular basis, and this speaks back to Councilmember Gray's question early on, just in terms of the number of people you have making the requests. And so I'm just curious if you have any insight into super users.
I don't think I found anything that spoke specifically to something like that. What I have seen in a few different policies were cases where, let's say, you have a request that is estimation, let's say, would take 20 hours of applicable staff time, and there was this special service fee in place. There was language in some policies that spoke to, kind of not working, not doing a like loophole in that. Whereas if they took a 20-hour request and then submitted 5, they cut it in, in fifths, and cut it in, submitted 5 requests that add up all to that at the same time, if that makes sense. There was language within within some of their policies that spoke to a certain requester who may have submitted multiple requests within like a 2-week window or something along those lines, would be included as one request for the purposes of calculating the special service fee. Now, I don't want to speak to what we may or may not be allowed to do as far as the law. I'll leave that to our attorney's office, of course. But I think that kind of gets to what you're asking about there. Was that kind of...
Yeah, I just think to myself in terms of man hours and project management, and how many, if for instance we have super users, to your point, with multiple requests, when there may be as many requests from a dozen other people,
Sure.
You now have a log jam, and it seems as if one user has perhaps increased the intensity of your workload. Thank you.
Okay, you go ahead.
Sorry. So I was just going to add on to that. So one of the things that was mentioned by a former member of this body was if there was a way to treat requests differently by request. And what I mean by that is, like, if one requester submitted 25 requests, then they would go into a queue and we would do one without not bogging down others. And the challenge with that is then we get to treating them differently. And so we try to have the same process for all of them. So as requests come in, we acknowledge them, we still route them. But I think getting to your point about the super user or the super requester is what I'm thinking, that is making significant number of requests. We kind of don't have a way to...
With high intensity, right. That's the thing, isn't
right. It? We just don't have a way to stop that, because then we start treating requesters differently.
Yeah, because it all does come down to the language of as promptly as possible. And then I think if you're getting into a situation where you're creating a separate queue for a specific requester, then I think that would not really be as promptly as possible. So that would be, I guess, our position on that.
I just have one more question. It's outside of your office, so for PD stuff, if there's body cam requests, is that part of public records that's different? Okay, just want to make sure, because there's a lot of time involved with that. All right, going back to pursue public records policies, is everybody in agreement to move forward? Okay. All right, explore public records special service fee.
I say hold on that. Let's wait till we get a policy, and then we can figure out the fee schedule a little bit later on. That would be my take.
Wouldn't the policy depend on whether there's a special service fee or not?
We can certainly create a policy with or without the fee. The policy would also speak to the other fees that are already within our fee schedule, but also the process of the public records request. So it would have kind of in there better expectations for what the requester can expect from the town, kind of the time frame. And it would also kind of help to have the backing of council to that process as well as we work with staff and try to make requests more efficient. So the fees would only be a component of the policy, and it would not be a policy just for the fees, if that makes sense.
Yes, would the policy, if you don't have direction on whether, if we defer the question on exploring special service fees, would the policy still define things like extensive request, or would that be part of the special service fee portion of the policy, which we're today?
I suppose we could define extensive requests. You know, that could be something we put in the policy just for informational purposes. If there was not the special service fee, I think that kind of gets to what you were saying, Councilmember Gray, on kind of having people have that information and see how things go at that point. But then there wouldn't be the fee kind of associated with it. It would just kind of be there more as informational. It wouldn't have any contribution to anything in that regard. But we could definitely do that.
Just a thought. Is it possible that we have a public record library? So whenever a user wants to find information, that person can just search through the library by he or herself, by themselves. So it would be much, easier, and also save lots of time, energy from our employees.
Yeah, so a couple things on that. That's one of the main things. My position, public records coordinator, was new, and it was only filled just as of this July. One of the things that we're going to explore is getting more records digitized and put out there public facing. So for example, you can already go on the town's website and see meeting minutes for town council meetings all the way to 2000, I believe. But we're wanting to try to expand that to as much as we possibly can, to your point, to where people can just go and find records that they may be looking for. They may not have to submit a request in the first place. And then a secondary thing to consider is that with a public records request software, there are tools that has where if somebody types in, I want to see the meeting minutes for the July 7th, 2006 meeting. We can have, basically the tools in that system allow when certain keywords come up, they'll get a pop-up on the side of the screen that can say something like, are you looking for meeting minutes? You can find them on the town's website here. And it will redirect them to where those records are available. So as we do digitize and publish more records, we can include that if we have a software as part of that redirection to point them in the right place to where things are already available. So that's definitely a great point and something that we're wanting to do as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, River. So getting back to explore public records, special service fee, it's a no, correct? We're just going to pause.
We'll just pause that.
Pause that. Okay, all right. And then you had mentioned appropriate funds for public records. You want to see more research.
Yes, a little bit. Just an idea of what we're looking at in terms of other ones. I'm in favor of the idea of a records program. Just give us some options with regard to how to, what's available, how much that's going to cost, and the cross flow with regard to other departments, how they might be able to use it.
So for just to clarify on that, are you wanting to kind of put a policy in place and then see how things go for a while with that before moving in?
Oh no, I think you need to kind of like start figuring out, what's. I think you can work those simultaneously. The policy,
Okay.
bringing that to us, and then when you're bringing us the policies, be able to say, here's a menu of.
You want more
things.
specifics then?
Yeah. give
Okay.
us a
So
menu
more
of things.
specifics on cost options and how we may be able to work with PD as well.
Right,
Okay.
because
Gotcha.
you'll be able to say, hey, we're using this same program that Greensboro is using. This is their success rate. We've seen them do it with this, and hopefully you'll be able to say that if we partner with another municipality, they might give us a discount.
I don't know about all that.
Just giving it an offer, just giving it.
I can certainly ask. I'll tell them Councilmember Gray sent me.
Might work, you know.
Well, the issue is they're going to get a referral,
Right.
probably discount.
They would be the ones if there was anything. But you know, maybe if we do that, I can try to get us some referral fees.
Yep,
if that's
right.
a thing. I don't know. But yes, we can certainly look into that and then bring that back along with policy.
All right, you got everything you need?
I believe so. Yep.
All right, very well.
All right. Thank y'all.
And thank you. Again, great presentation. All right, no further business. Anything else from anyone? Hearing none, all right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
See you guys next week.
All right.
Is our work session gonna
Next
be
week, that's right.
ugly sweater day? We didn't do it this
I don't
time.
have an ugly sweater.
Do something festive. Festive next week.
My sweat.